On the 157th floor of Dubai's newest super tower in 2030, a high-stakes merger meeting was underway. Around a gleaming boardroom table, executives from 3 continents argued in urgent tones, negotiating the final terms of a $500 million deal. Their voices overlapped in English, punctuated by bursts of Arabic and Mandarin from interpreters. Tension hung thick in the ultra-modern glass-walled room, until a small pink crayon suddenly rolled across the polished marble floor. The CEO of Aurelius Investments stopped mid-sentence, eyebrows furrowing at the child's crayon intruding into their closed-door negotiations. A hush fell. Heads turned toward the doorway, where a little girl stood clutching a coloring book. Behind her, a janitor in a faded uniform hovered anxiously beside his cleaning cart. He froze, feeling every eye in the boardroom lance into him. His heart sank as he realized what had happened. His daughter's crayon had escaped at the worst possible time. One suited executive cleared his throat, breaking the silence. Another narrowed her eyes in irritation. The janitor's cheeks burned with embarrassment. He bowed apologetically and scrambled to snatch up the stray crayon, bracing for a scolding or worse. But as he reached down, the little girl stepped forward and piped up softly, "Je suis désolée." "I'm sorry," in flawless French. The executives were stunned. What now? Would they throw the intruders out or listen? What would you do in their place? Let us know in the comments. Earlier that day, the morning sun had barely risen over Dubai when Amir, the janitor, arrived at the skyscraper with his young daughter Layla in tow. This was no ordinary day. Executives from around the world were convening in the tower's grand boardroom for a pivotal merger meeting. Amir had been asked to come in early to ensure every marble tile was spotless and every glass wall shimmered. Normally, he'd never bring his child to work, but circumstances forced his hand. The babysitter fell through, and he had no family in the city to help. Layla, cheerful and curious, promised to be on her best behavior. She clutched her box of crayons and sketchpad, content to quietly draw while her father worked. As they entered the marble lobby, Layla's eyes widened at the flurry of activity. Suited men and women hurried in, speaking a mix of languages. She caught snatches of Mandarin from a delegation stepping out of a limousine, and Arabic from a local VIP greeting them. Dubai was a swirl of tongues, and to Layla, it was the music of everyday life. She had grown up amidst this chorus. Arabic from their neighbors, Hindi from the security guard, English and French at school, even a bit of Mandarin from a kind old tenant on the 50th floor who taught her words during lunch breaks. Layla absorbed languages like a sponge, and her father often joked that she could talk to anyone in the world if she had the chance. That morning, her talent was already on display. When Mr. Chen, a Chinese tech CEO, walked through the lobby, Layla shyly waved and greeted him with a polite "Zhaoan," "Good morning," in Mandarin. Mr. Chen blinked in surprise before breaking into a grin and replying in kind. Nearby, a French consultant nearly dropped his phone upon hearing the girl cheerfully say, "Bonjour, monsieur," as he passed. Amir gently placed a hand on Layla's shoulder, reminding her with a soft smile to stay quiet now. While he was proud of her polyglot abilities, he didn't want them drawing the wrong kind of attention on this important day. Layla nodded and tucked herself beside his cleaning cart, eyes shining with pride. Upstairs, the boardroom preparations were in full swing. Amir diligently wiped down the long conference table, polished the cityscape view windows, and arranged crystal water pitchers, all under the watchful eye of the facilities manager, who stressed how critical this meeting was. The merger, rumored to be worth $500 million, had every executive on edge. Layla sat in a quiet corner of the hallway just outside, legs crossed, sketching in her pad. Through the cracked boardroom door, she could hear muffled voices as participants trickled in. Even without seeing them, she recognized a few languages in the mix and whispered to herself what they were, like a fun guessing game. By mid-morning, negotiations were underway and the tension became palpable even out in the hall. From time to time, Amir peeked through the door's glass panel to ensure the refreshment table was stocked. Inside, raised voices filtered out, one moment in English, another in Chinese, then a burst of Arabic. Something wasn't going smoothly. Layla glanced up from coloring each time she heard an outburst. She could sense the frustration in those tones, even if she couldn't make out the words. The little girl wondered what they were arguing about. In her experience, when people didn't understand each other's words, they often grew upset. She had seen it happen at school, and even between neighbors. She wished she could help in some way, but this was her papa's workplace, not hers. Amir felt his stomach tighten with worry. If this deal fell apart, the client might blame the venue or cut contracts. It could even cost people their jobs, maybe his. He glanced down the hallway at his daughter, who was carefully drawing a picture of the skyline. Her presence was a comfort amidst his nerves. He took a slow breath, reminding himself to focus. All he had to do was his job and keep Layla safe and unnoticed until the meeting was over. Just then, a sharp exchange of words echoed from inside the boardroom. Startled, Layla accidentally jostled her crayon box. One bright pink crayon rolled out, wobbling on its edge. Before she could grab it, the crayon slipped across the smooth floor. Layla watched in horror as it headed straight for the slightly ajar boardroom door. The door had been left open a crack after Amir's last check-in. Now, through that gap, the small crayon ventured inside, tapping gently against the leg of the massive conference table. Amir saw it happen as if in slow motion. His heart lurched. "Oh no," he breathed. In an instant, he was by his daughter's side, eyes wide. Inside the boardroom, the voices had fallen silent. It was the worst possible moment for an interruption. For a moment, nobody moved. The tension shattered into stunned silence. A child's apologetic voice, speaking perfect French, was the last thing anyone expected in that boardroom. One executive sputtered, demanding to know how a child had gotten in, while others simply stared in disbelief. Amir rushed forward, bowing repeatedly as he apologized. But then Mr. Chen, the Chinese CEO, stood up slowly. He recognized the girl from the lobby. Switching to Mandarin, he gently asked, "Ni hui shuo zhongwen ma, do you speak Chinese?" Layla peeked out from behind her father and nodded, answering in Mandarin that she did. Her voice was timid but clear. A collective gasp rose around the table. Jaws dropped. Even the professional interpreters looked astonished. "Your daughter, she speaks our languages?" a local executive asked Amir in Arabic. Amir managed a humble nod. "6 languages," he murmured. Nervous whispers spread among the suits as they regarded Layla with a mix of awe and curiosity. "This is highly irregular," the British CEO muttered, though his tone had softened considerably. He looked at Layla, intrigue overcoming protocol. Before he could insist on their exit, Fatima Al-Nouri, the Emirati director, spoke up. "We're at an impasse and running out of ideas. Perhaps we should hear what the child has to say." "That's ridiculous," barked another American executive. "We're going to take advice from a janitor's kid? We have translators and lawyers who haven't solved it," Ms. Dupont, the French consultant, cut in firmly. "We've nothing to lose by at least hearing her perspective." Several heads nodded in agreement. The conflict that had pitted them against each other now united them in a small shared hope. The CEO exhaled and gestured to an empty chair. "All right, young lady, let's see what you can do," he said, attempting a polite smile. "Please come sit." Layla looked up at her father. Amir's heart pounded, but he gave her a tiny, encouraging nod. With hesitant steps, she approached and climbed into the large leather chair offered to her. The executives leaned in, their formidable presence gentled by anticipation, as this little girl sat among them at the huge table. They quickly explained the problem. Clause 12 of the contract read differently in English and Chinese. The English version's phrase, "sole discretion," made the Chinese side fear they'd have zero control after the merger, which they refused to accept. The Western team insisted that wasn't the intent at all. Layla carefully pulled the thick document closer, her legs dangling from the chair. Everyone fell quiet as her eyes darted between the English text and its Chinese translation side by side. Tiny furrows formed on her brow as she concentrated. The room was so silent that the soft scratch of her finger tracing the lines was audible. After a minute, Leela looked up. "In Chinese, it really says the main company will have exclusive control," she explained in English, choosing her words slowly. Mr. Chen and his colleagues nodded, exactly their concern. She then pointed to the English clause. And here it says, sole discretion, which sounds like only one side decides. The British CEO and his lawyers exchanged sheepish looks. That standard term had caused an unintended alarm. So, it's a misunderstanding, Fatima asked gently. Yes, but I think the words are the problem, Leela said. Her voice gained a bit of confidence as she went on. Maybe change the words so it means both companies share control. The lead attorney blinked. Why hadn't they thought of that? What wording would you suggest? He asked, half expecting not to get a real answer. Layla didn't reply right away. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the pink crayon that had started all this. A few executives smiled in spite of themselves. Leaning over the contract, Leela carefully drew a neat line through the word sole. In the space above it, in large clear letters, she wrote, joint. Then, on the Chinese version below, she added 2 Chinese characters in her own slightly shaky handwriting. The Chinese interpreter's eyes widened. He read the new phrase aloud, translating it back to English, joint decision-making. A wave of realization swept the table. Mr. Chen broke into a grin. Gongtong Ju Sa Chuen, joint decision-making power. This would be acceptable to us, he said, visibly relieved. A smile spread across Mr. Carrington's face. Joint discretion? Yes, that's much better. The British CEO turned to his team, who were already nodding eagerly and scribbling the change. This reflects the partnership we intended, he said with satisfaction. Laughter of relief rippled through the room. All this time, that's all we needed to do, one executive chuckled, shaking his head. The atmosphere lightened palpably, tension melting into shared gratitude and even a few embarrassed smiles. If this inspiring twist has you amazed, please subscribe to our channel for more uplifting, true-life stories. Someone started clapping. In moments, the entire boardroom broke into gentle applause. Several executives exchanged handshakes, astonished and delighted that the breakthrough had come from an 8-year-old with a crayon. Mr. Carrington rose, straightening his tie, and declared with a broad grin, "Ladies and gentlemen, I do believe we have an agreement." He turned to Layla, who was still perched in the big chair, and gave her a respectful nod. "Miss Layla, we cannot thank you enough. You may have just saved this $500 million deal." Layla blushed deeply and slid down from the chair as the adults continued to applaud. She quietly made her way back to her father's side. Amir's eyes were wet with tears he did not bother to hide. The proud father scooped Layla into his arms in a tight hug, whispering, "Shukran, beta. Thank you." His voice trembled with gratitude and pride. In the hours that followed, the merger agreement was finalized with the fair wording Layla had suggested. The once fierce adversaries around that table now chatted amicably, united by the relief of a deal saved and the incredulity of how it happened. More than one executive remarked that they would likely never forget this day. As signatures were penned onto the revised contract, Victor Carrington made a point to stand next to Amir. "You have a remarkable daughter," the CEO said quietly, extending his hand. Amir shook it gratefully, still dazed. I don't know how to thank you all for giving her a chance," Amir replied. Mr. Chen, overhearing, chuckled. "If anything, we should thank you," he insisted, patting Amir on the back. "Without her, we'd still be arguing past midnight." A ripple of laughter passed through the group. Nearby, Layla was busy showing Ms. DuPont how to write the Chinese characters for together on a notepad, the two of them giggling like old friends. Even the formerly brash Mr. Hargrove approached Layla with a sheepish grin. He had been the loudest skeptic, but now he offered her a candy from a dish on the table. "I'm sorry I shouted earlier," he said as she accepted the treat. "You reminded us what real teamwork looks like," Layla beamed. To her, these important adults were no longer intimidating. They were just people happy to finally understand each other. When the final handshake was done, the room erupted in congratulations. The deal, all $500 million of it, was saved. In the afterglow of success, Fatima turned to Amir with a warm smile. "Your daughter is extraordinary. Dubai could use more bright minds like hers. If you ever need help with her education, please call me." Amir was speechless, tears of gratitude forming in his eyes. He had always done his best for Layla, and now it seemed her future might shine a little brighter. Before everyone dispersed, the executives insisted on taking a commemorative photo. The entire group clustered around Layla in the center, her pink crayon held up like a trophy. Amir stood proudly by her side. In the photo, every face, from CEO to janitor, glowed with a genuine smile. After the bustle faded and the high flyers departed to celebrate, Amir and Layla lingered a moment in the empty boardroom. Sunlight streamed in, bathing the quiet space in warm gold. Amir knelt and gently pulled his daughter into his arms. He was a man who typically kept his head down at work, but today he held it high. "I'm so proud of you, Habibti," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. Layla hugged him back tightly, burying her face in his shoulder. "I only help because you taught me to, Papa," she mumbled. "You always say we should help people understand each other." Amir realized she was right. In cleaning up others' messes all his life, he had unwittingly taught her something far greater. They eventually walked out side by side, a humble janitor and his brilliant child stepping into the afternoon sun. Word of what happened had already begun to spread through the building. Colleagues from security to reception were abuzz with the tale of how a little girl broke a stalemate that top executives couldn't. By that evening, the story had made its way into local business news. People marveled at the headline, "Janitor's daughter speaks 6 languages, rescues $500 million deal." It seemed unbelievable, yet it happened in that very tower. The next day, as Amir and Layla returned to their normal routine, nothing felt quite the same. The executives had not forgotten them. A basket of gifts arrived for Layla with thank you notes in 6 different languages. The CEO even wrote to the building management praising Amir's family. There was talk of a promotion or at least a bonus for the janitor translator. All Amir cared about, though, was that his daughter had gotten to shine. Layla's story became an inspiration to everyone who heard it. It was a reminder that wisdom and talent can come from the most unexpected places, even a child with crayons in a skyscraper hallway. It proved that sometimes bridging languages and perspectives just takes a bit of courage and a fresh pair of eyes. That evening, as father and daughter sat together at home, Layla worked on a new drawing, this time sketching a scene of people around a big table holding hands. Amir realized the picture summed it up perfectly. No matter our differences in language or status, understanding each other is the key to solving any problem. And he couldn't be prouder that his little girl had been the one to remind everyone of that truth. What did you think of Layla's incredible act of courage and understanding? Did this story inspire you or remind you of someone you know? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective.